Hi, welcome to Conversations with me, Keren Ben-Horin, fashion historian and curator. My guest today is Henrik Vibskov. His official title of fashion designer actually hides the many different things that he does, from playing music to creating art, creating performance. And we talked about how in his fashion practice he brings all of those things together. We talked about what it's like to see his work in museums all over the world and how all of that led him to grow Radish. Hi, Henrik. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. It's
Um,
4 o'clock here,
it's afternoon
um,
for you.
afternoon, but I'm good.
Awesome. So why don't we start with just say who you are and what you do.
My name is Henrik Vibskov. I'm Copenhagen-based creative mind. I'm working with fashion, ballets, theater, music, exhibitions, and galleries, and many different things. I'm also a professor at the Danish Design School. I'm educated at Central St. Martin's 18 years ago, and I've been doing shows in Paris, runway shows the last 18 years, maybe 20. I'm not sure, but I have a store in Copenhagen and I have one in New York. And what else do I do? Bits and bobs, whatever comes around. I say yes to way too many things, but I also like it sometimes that it's a bit chaotic and busy.
Um, great. So one of the interesting things that sort of like intrigued me about your work um, and is like this crossover, I would say, between um, different materials, different ways of exhibiting fashion, sort of like this performance aspect. And before we kind of go into that, I wanted to ask you about your design philosophy. So what drives your this like fashion design or your or the way you approach fashion?
In general, I like to channel. So, I've been doing it for, I started playing drums when I was 10 years. So you could say that was my first chapter of being a creative person. And in general, I like to challenge my brain with trying new materials, new things, new ideas, and somehow so I can keep the passion and the lust for being creative. I like to try new methods or new forms or new materials just to keep myself running instead of just doing the same and the same. So I like to work very conceptual. I like to have a part in the middle of a fashion show, which is maybe a more performative part, or maybe work a lot with the space of the show. Or so, for example, here you also see parts. This is from the Danish Museum called Glyptoteket in Copenhagen, where I was invited into this great ballroom they have with all the sculptures you see on the side. So I thought I maybe could do something which is a modern reflection of the sculptures and use the part of from the fashion show, but only the installation and performative part, and that became a single performance. So this performance, it was very much about. It started actually in Japan, where on top of a museum, I saw a little sculpture who was trying to measure the clouds. So it was like a little man with a, like you couldn't see the measurement band, but he was kind of trying to measure the clouds that passed by. And then I thought it was interesting how we all the mankind is measuring everything. That's part of our DNA, that we need to measure how good we are. We measure towards family, to our colleagues. We measure everything is kind of getting into this numbers. So the whole school system is also built on numbers. The whole financial system is built on numbers, which sometimes is getting a little bit. Also you have iPhones measuring your sleep, your how long you've been walking, how long you've been doing all kind of things. So.
Mm-hmm. So it's also a little bit like, how technology sort of like paces us, is also like really an interesting aspect of what you said. It's not only how we measure ourselves, but also now we have all those like tools that measure us constantly.
Yeah. So for this particular installation there, then the people in the yellow outfits, they climb up on top of the rack. They lie on it's actually car wheels, or the blown up part of car wheels. So they lie on them, and then they are controlling some brushes, as you can see, and the brushes have measurement bands on it. And then under it, this is the daytime before the show starts, there would be some people lying in a semi-transparent mesh. They would be lying naked, so they are trying to measure the body, which is a big part of, you could say, our society now. Also, we measure how we are, how we look, what we do. Do we put on weight? Should I be slimmer? Should I be bigger? Should I grow more? Am I too small? Am I too tall? So that's what they're doing for the performance part.
That's really interesting. So in your kind of like, when you design for sort of like, when you do those performances, what comes first, the idea for the performance or the clothes?
It depends a lot. Sometimes it's very difficult to trigger creativities. You cannot just turn it on and off. It sometimes just pops up. But sometimes the method can be a color that triggers something to a way to go, or it could be also be a concept. Normally we work on 3 different concepts, 3 different directions. We research a lot on it, and we try to find different pictures from religion, culture, different can be food, it can be all kind of things put together, and hopefully those 3 different direction can melt together. Maybe it's only 2 of them, and that becomes some kind of a weird surreal idea or concept. So it depends. This is something else. This is from a ballet at the Royal Swedish Opera, a piece that I did together with a guy called Alexander Ekman that I've been working a lot with. He's a choreographer. And here we worked very, you could say, graphically, because there's a lot of movement going on. So it was also, how can you trigger the eye with black and white stripes, kind of a very simple technique, and also working a bit with the fading technique.
What do you mean by the fading technique?
It starts very much in black and fades out and becomes stripes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
up at the waist, it's nearly dark.
Gorgeous. It's just absolutely amazing. So it seems to me like the way the body moves is very much part of your work, and a lot of your designs have been exhibited in museums. And so I wonder, like, what is that like, since so much of your work and your design has to do with movement? What is that like to see your garments on a mannequin in a museum?
I think in general mannequins are slightly sad because they don't have the movement. You could say my job is to work with textiles to like 3D architecture for the body.
Mhm.
So of course mannequins can be a little bit sad. It's of course much nicer to see it on 50 dancers in a dance corps. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, that's also installation part. It's actually a light sculpture. It's a bit difficult to see here. The whole idea and concept was looking a bit into how we grow and how food is becoming artificial, and how we in artificial grow green hands you know, you see some skyscrapers where they only are growing things with artificial lights. So I thought it could be interesting to grow something. So I decided to grow radish because it had a bit of I like the shape, I like the color. It has a bit of cartoonish feeling to it. It also have a bit of humor. I thought, like, what are you doing at the moment? I'm growing a lot of radish already. That was like, what? So I created this tunnel of like a light tunnel that was in the middle of the catwalk where we could control the light. So we could make it like a light installation. We could make the light go really fast or really slow. But also we were growing this artificial vegetables, which were common to what's real, what's not real anymore. Do we need daylight? Don't we? Can we just eat things that haven't even been in, you could say, real soil?
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
And that kind of makes me think about a story I read about you that involves cucumbers.
Yeah.
Would you want to share it? You don't have
Was it?
to.
I've been working a few times with cucumbers. Which ones
I'm
was it when I
thinking
was
about
applying?
a major failure with cucumbers that you submitted as an application for a
Yeah,
school.
it was actually at before St. Martin's. I played music for many years, and I was thinking about applying for a creative school, and I was on a foundation school, and I somehow ended up at a design course, which were only fashion design, um, then I thought that when I was applying for the Danish design school, I had to really, do something special. So I made a portfolio where I had like a lot of, you could say, A1 sized clear plast portfolio where I vacuumed a lot of pickled cucumber, and then I put my name in transparent text floating inside, and so this was Henrik Vibskov's portfolio, and then with all the classical drawings and stuff like that inside of it. I was, of course, a little bit. There was 1,000 people, I think, in general, applying the school every year to get into the different course. And then they called from the school, and I was very interested in, like, okay, maybe I'm gonna come for the test thing, and it was like a 4 days test where you had to go in and do different practices. So I thought they called about that, but they just called because the pressure from all the other portfolios from they just stack the portfolios on top of each other. That was before the PDF or whatever you're saying
Yeah.
now. So there was this pressure. So my cucumber juice exploded because of the pressure from the other portfolios out on the design school's office and down on top of all the other applications. So they just called to say if I very, very fast could come out and clean up after this mess that I had created. And so first from being, yes, okay, yeah, you're calling from the design school, to like, shit, a
So
really bad start.
usually when I do those interviews, I ask about like, you know, what's your biggest failure, or was there like a failure that really shaped you? So I thought that was such a, first of all, like a funny story, but also so telling of sort of like your creativity and your sort of like out of the box thinking. So is there something in particular that you took away from that experience?
No, but they allowed me to get to the 4 days test, where every day you have to go through different classical drawings or different perspective concept stories. I kind of fucked up the start. So I thought like, okay, I better shape up, and I really like to get in. I probably have to do something really, really wild.
Mm-hmm.
So I just went completely nuts for every day, and so I built a tower of potatoes, a 3-meter tall tower of potatoes that was kind of, it was supposed to kind of show something about cross disciplines or something like that, and it was very was extremely interesting for all the other application people. But and the day after, I was working with some prawns, and I don't know, it just went a little bit off track towards. I didn't get in. I yeah.
So that's certainly like
It
something
was
to learn
too.
from.
But the
um,
teachers was like, "What the fuck is going on with this guy?" Like the cucumbers, potato towers.
this guy
What
should go
about?
into culinary, not fashion.
Yeah. Uh,
But I mean, it worked out just fine for you. And actually, I think there's a lot of that sort of like interdisciplinary um, aspect throughout your work that sort of like pops up all the time, whether it's performance or it's art or it's design. And even thinking about your you know, for me in particular, I'm really interested in your knitwear. Your work has been shown in my book, The Sweater, and you know, even your jacquards are sort of like works of art, in my eyes at least. You know, there's this. It's not just a garment; it's really like wearable art in a sense.
Yeah, we actually been talking a bit about um, we working on a 20 years anniversary thing, and we talked a bit about if we should do a special kind of anniversary knitwear collection, where because some of the knitwear we were just talking a bit like in the company, what would actually make something that's have been standing out, or what we've been really good at.
Mm-hmm.
And the knits has been very graphically or been working out really well for us, mostly on the winter seasons. But so we thought maybe we should do like a review of the different things we've been doing the last many years
And
in
how?
knitwear.
I mean, do you think? I'm kind of like thinking out loud here, but you know, like Denmark has this knitting or knitwear tradition. So how much of that is influencing your work?
I don't know. It's also it's also with the methods and the techniques you can use in the knitwear. I like to work very graphically, and you can actually get that work out in knitwear. So you can get all the graphic visual things out in knitwear. So it's kind of in general we use quite a lot of time on creating textiles,
Mm-hmm.
either by weaving or different structures, or also like monochrome things that where it's not so screaming. But then on the knitwear, in general I like colors also, but on the knitwear and the weaving techniques, you can do quite many interesting things. So therefore, I think that's why I've been using it a lot.
Let's talk about your art a little bit. So you've been doing art in galleries, and you've been doing art installations. So tell me a little bit about maybe what we're seeing, or more general, sort of like how you come to do those things.
Yeah, I have this idea that I should, that textile, the fibers, the weaving thing is kind of my, you could say my force, my métier, as you would say in France. So I try to work a lot with textiles in different ways, and sometimes it works out that it also could be something that you could maybe use for artwork from a gallery. Sometimes not, sometimes it doesn't work. But here is from some of the latest exhibition in Germany at that gallery that I'm on, called Rutkowski in Cologne, in Cologne. And there you see somewhere we use been doing some hand embroidery on your left side, on top of some acrylic painting that I did. And then on the other side, we used a lot of spandex, but tried to work a lot with the tension of the spandex, so shaping in a weird 3D way. So they nearly became more like faces, and then of course I also been working a lot with wood. So you see some wood sculptures on your left side, I guess. This is from a museum exhibition in Japan at the 21st Century Museum in Kanazawa. I was asked here to work with the daily design, the daily routine, and I suggested 3 different ideas, and they picked up on something about dishwashing. So I created, I designed a plate, which is really difficult because there's been made, I don't know, milliards of plates or ceramic plates. So I designed one with a little hole in and with a little plug, a bit like a bathtub. So you could kind of empty the sauce out, you could say. But also so that the plate could be used in a drying technique. So here you see some of the plates are hanging on this stand. And then the whole installation was like a weirdly strange scientific dishwashing factory. This is in a round room. I think actually they call it the Matthew Barney's room. It's kind of a super ellipse oval shaped, pretty big space. And in the middle of that, we created this kind of 4-shaped, strangely dishwashing. And then a lot of things. What are you doing when you're dishwashing? You can it can be the first time of the day where it's very zen, you're alone. It's something we all do worldwide. For some people, it can also be the first time of the day that you actually talk with your husband, your girlfriend, boyfriend. It can also be a place where you are having an argument. It can also be the place where you maybe have sex. You can be alone. There's many different things happening in this moment. So, so talking about rituals, daily performance, we all do it. It's part of the cleaning process of being a human, keeping bacterial dirt away. Yeah, there's many different perspectives of it. So that's what this project was about. And then I thought, like, okay, maybe let's do something stupid, because all plates are designed to that it can keep something in, but to have a hole in the middle of a plate is pretty stupid.
And was it interactive? Could people like touch it, interact with it?
That was the plan, but then we were in Japan and we were like, yes, everything is ready, and but they were not allowed to touch anything because it was a museum piece.
Mm-hmm.
So the interactive part became very sad.
Yeah, I wish we would start thinking about museums in a different way, where you could actually like really touch and interact with the artwork.
But it was there's water in each sink, so it was the more that the people could go and put a bit of water, very ritual, on top of the plates. They could actually clean them themselves. It was also something about that the sound of the water, drops that made a bit Zen vibe. So and we did a performance that we recorded on film. So, but that was only for the opening, and then from that on, people could only walk around it, but do not touch it.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that.
That is called, that's from a show called The 5 O'Clock Leg Alignment. There's the team here in the studio at that point where there was a lot of yoga going on. I was also noticing how many of my relatives went into kind of extreme situations about sport situations that became, everybody had to run half marathon or full marathons. I was nearly also even signing up from some long distance cross country skiing. Even your granddad is starting running long distance. People are doing CrossFit. People are going pretty extreme, like normal people.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be like you could say, would you call it elite sports people, like professionals that were doing this? But now it's kind of everybody, which is nice. It's not a, but it was just it's an interesting point to see that many normal people started to do pretty extreme things. A little perspective on that was maybe it was also it's very much about self-control. That it's something you can control yourself. You have to fight with your inner devil about how long you can go, but maybe it's also maybe a reflection of our society, how we fight with a lot of things. We are in a world with chaos. You see environment going down and things are blurry. Some countries have a president that are pretty crazy. A lot of different things. So I think in this craziness and chaotic things, then the individuals are trying to control what they can manage. So that was a comment to that. Then I thought, hey, maybe we could, with the yoga team in the studio, maybe they could be challenged in an extreme way. So what about giving them some strange objects and strange shapes that they had to do this yoga experience with? So that became, so it was actually the team, all the people from the studio that was doing the performative part for this show, and it became more nearly like a dance.
And it really kind of relates back to the first work that we've seen about measuring, sort of like how we measure ourselves constantly, and this like upkeep that we feel like we need to do all the time.
Yeah. So bit we are actually sitting here. We've been using the Corona crisis to work on a book or two, where so we're going through all works the last 8-10 years to work on a new book, and we're trying to put them into different categories. And there's a lot about like the mind, the humans, also a lot about food, what we do, how we eat, why we eat. There's a lot about survival. There's also, what else do we have on rituals, movements, the body, animals, the universe, and also families. Kind of, we're trying to group them into different themes, all the projects.
And when you kind of look at when you have this opportunity to kind of look back at your work in the past decade and a half, how do you think your work evolved?
I'm also repeating myself in a weird way. Sometimes the book we did some years ago, which is maybe 7 years now, we were not really sure how to put it. Should it be by time? We categorized the whole thing. Should it be by names? Should it be by... And suddenly realized that I use quite of same colors, like the 5, 6, 7 same colors. So suddenly it became categorized by colors, and that was kind of spooky to see that I'm just have this mindset and going very much into the same colors constantly. Mint, rusty brown, a lot of pink, red, orange, black and white, a little bit of yellow, and not so much blue. So then in the end of before we were working with the last book, it was like, okay, all projects we're doing the next 2 months has to be blue, because we need more blue.
Henrik, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. This has been great. Thank you, and good luck with all your future projects.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.